this was done quite amazingly.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I agree.
Yeah, and some people, I mean, I do hear from some friends, these bloody Israelis, but really the numbers of vaccines that Israel got is nothing compared to what Europe needs. So even if we got a few millions, that's not what the Europeans are missing. I mean, what's happening in Europe is really a shame with the vaccine. I mean, the whole thing, even the approval by the EMA. Why do the EMA needs 1 month if the FDA can do it in 2 weeks? That's
definitely. And welcome, Arthur. Hello. Hello, Susanna. Thank you for joining.
Hi.
Konstantin, great background. What is that?
Well, I think these should be Alps by Bob Ross.
Yep. Nice. Take me to the Alps.
Hello. Yeah, I wish I could go there.
Yeah. Hello, Rob. Welcome.
Hello.
In the meantime, you already have your first task. You see it on the bottom, on the top right corner of the screen. Please change your name to your full name and add your group number. Okay. And if you need to remember your group number, you can check the email I sent this morning, and that'll be very helpful.
Wait a minute. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Fave, how do you pronounce your name?
Eugenio is the name. So this is the login for the internal servers. So that's.
This is a good time to change the internal servers. The name of your children that used your Zoom account, your pets, or anything else, so we actually know who you are, and later on we put you in the right place. Brigitte, great job. I think you're number one.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm the first one, and I'm number one group.
Okay, because this is Israeli-German workshop, we are going to start on time to respect our colleagues and all the fantastic people, and mainly respect your time. So Andrea from Helmholtz, Israel.
Yeah, hello, shalom, and a warm and sunny welcome from Tel Aviv to all of you. And a very warm welcome to our special guests, Dr. Susanne Basum-Reiner, German ambassador to Israel, and Professor Ottmar Wiesler, president of the Helmholtz Association. We are delighted to have you all with us and to give you the opportunity to dive into the unique Israeli innovation ecosystem over the next couple of weeks, together with our friends from the EIT Hub, Yoni, Adi, and their team, who put together a fantastic program. Yeah, Yoni, back over to you.
Thank you, Andrea. We are super excited for this collaboration. EIT, and we'll tell you a bit about it, but we really focus on supporting the commercialization process and great ideas leaving lab and supporting them from lab to market. So we couldn't be happier and honored more for collaboration and work with the Helmholtz Institute. So we're starting a journey together, us as the EIT Hub Israel. Our goal is part of EIT, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, to be a bridge between the Israeli and European innovation ecosystems, each fruitful, very diverse and interesting, each have different challenges and opportunity, and we aim to maximize and leveraging each other to try to create this effective bridge. We've been working for about 2 years and building on the European Innovation Institute communities. They're very active and collaborative in supporting startup growth and technology growth between from research centers all the way up to different industry partners. And we're here for a 5-session, really excited hand-on workshop aimed to really help you, researchers, PhD students, Helmholtz staff, in the different steps of the commercialization process. We really want to build on the Israeli unique value proposition. So each session is connected with a different value and a different characteristic that we see Israeli entrepreneurs having. we're going to go over, and you're going to learn, besides commercializations, a bit of Hebrew and a bit of Arabic that we see here. And we're going to together experience the different stages in different teams of experiencing firsthand what it means to commercialize an idea, what to do, what not to do. And eventually the finale here is called a brain date, where each of the teams is going to pitch their ideas to experts, VCs, industry players from Israel and Germany to get initial feedback and traction of your idea in a very supportive and intimate process. So it's super excited. We're going to delve into this a bit later. And I want to invite, and we're very honored to have Professor Utmar Whistler with us, the president of Helmholtz Association, who kindly agreed to open and share some welcome words.
Well, I'm happy to take over. Ambassador Mrs. Wasum Reiner, dear colleagues and friends from Israel and Germany, shalom and welcome to our joint workshop, Mind the Gap, in an unusual format due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but I think we are used to this in the meantime. The pandemic continues to have a rather deep impact on our lives, and the challenge is not mastered yet. I think at the end, we all agree this problem can only be solved by R&D efforts. And the fact that a new vaccine to the coronavirus based on an entirely new mRNA technology has been pushed into the market in only 10 months is an extraordinary example for what world-class research can achieve under extreme conditions. Developing the vaccines has been a huge achievement with two German biotech companies, BioNTech and CureVac, at the forefront, which we are very pleased with. However, delivering this vaccine to the population poses another major task, and we all deeply admire the incredible speed and efficiency of the Israeli vaccination campaign. Unfortunately, European states are dramatically lagging behind here, and the question comes up once again, what can we learn from Israel? Now, we all know that Israel is a very special place for research and innovation. This incredible, unique mix of creativity, of curiosity, of chutzpah have taken it to an incredible height in the years since the state was founded. Institutions such as the Weizmann Institute and many of your outstanding universities, of course, are at the heart of this and enjoy a splendid international reputation. At the same time, you really succeed in an incredible way to quickly put innovation into practice. And the lively startup scene in Israel is an expression of a willingness to take risks, which is probably unparalleled anywhere in the world. Now, for us at the Helmholtz Association, as many of you know, Israeli scientists and institutions have always been prime partners in many of our research fields, and it was only consequent for us to strengthen this scientific cooperation by opening a liaison office in Tel Aviv, which is up and running quite successfully, even during the COVID-19 period. Of course, our relations with Israeli institutions have always been very special, but I'd like to point out here again why we are so active in Israel. It's because we want to team up with the many outstanding Israeli talents, which we all admire, and we definitely want to learn from each other. Now, this also applies to the technology transfer and innovation sector. Israel's research and innovation scene can be a real role model for us in Germany. In this rapidly changing world, particularly during the period post-COVID-19, We in Germany must invest more courage to take risks. We must develop more appetite for the unknown, for more enthusiasm for disruptive technologies of the future. The BioNTech and CureVac examples basically demonstrate that German biotech can perform at a very high level, but we certainly have a long way to go. German science needs more entrepreneurship. It needs more willingness to spin off, to take risks, and more resilience for failure. And our friends in Israel can teach us a lot on this route. That's why we want our presence in Tel Aviv to be a hub for innovation and transfer, from which we all benefit in the end. Now, success in innovation at the end of the day critically depends on brilliant brains with an entrepreneurial spirit. That is the major resource at the end of the day. And at the Helmholtz Association, we are certainly committed to promote this entrepreneurial spirit further, and to also strongly invest into entrepreneurial education, something which we haven't done sufficiently in the past. I am very pleased about this very first bilateral entrepreneurship education workshop designed for the Helmholtz community. And I would like to sincerely thank Yoni from the EIT Hub, Andrea and the team from the Israel office for initiating and creating a great problem, which I hope is the basis for major future developments in the years to come. I wish you and us all a fruitful and inspirational workshop. And I would now like to hand over to a very special friend of ours and a very special guest, the German ambassador to Israel, Susanne Wasum-Reiner. Thank you so much, Mrs. Wasum-Reiner, for joining us today and for all your continued support. With this, welcome once again. I am certainly very much looking forward to this event.
Thank you very much, Professor Wiesler, and thank you very much also to Yoni and Andrea. It is exciting for me to be here. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to welcome everybody on our virtual journey to Israel. I'm already quite infected by your enthusiasm for what we are doing today and in the coming sessions we are going to have. I just wanted to underline that ever since I arrived as ambassador in Israel, I felt that I'm in an innovation nation when I am in Israel. And this is very, very inspiring and gives a lot of kind of feeling for future and courage to go into a future. So I'm happy that that you are organizing this this workshop, Mind the Gap, get your ideas from lab to market. I think we have to be grateful to the Helmholtz Liaison Office in Tel Aviv and to the European Innovation Technology Hub Tel Aviv for bringing that together. And thank you really for all of you, to all of you. Based on the experience of the Innovation Nation, this series of workshops intends to promote and to encourage not only new instruments and methods, but rather a culture of knowledge and technology transfer that starts in the research labs and leads to successful marketable products. I think this is something we can learn extremely amounts of things from Israel, where this is just doing perfectly well. Thanks again also to the Helmholtz Association that plays a central role here. As you know, it acts as an interface between basic research and industry. Its mission is to tackle major and pressing challenges for science, economy, and society of our time through cutting-edge research. And what Professor Wiesler just said about the COVID pandemic is just one example. As challenges increasingly emerge on a global level, it is becoming more important than ever to establish partnerships with leading science nations in order to further develop creative solutions for the benefit of us all. So I wish you a lot of luck, a lot of inspiration, a lot of mutual learning, and a lot of mutual inspiring. And I'm looking forward to all those sessions you are embarking now on. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you very much, Dr. Susanna Weisner-Reiner. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Admir Wiesler. Thank you for a great opening. And we really feel the support in these two significant organizations backed us and really supporting us as we set up our workshop and our journey. And this is a bit the framework where we thought together with Andrea, what can we offer? What can we go through these 5 sessions? This is what we had in our mind. We want you to experience the startup life cycle, not just talk about it, experience. That's why we're dividing you into groups where each of the group are you going to meet together with people that you not necessarily work with, come up with an idea, and through 5 very methodological steps, turn that idea and check if it's suitable and how to make it suitable for market. We're going to show you what initial roadmap you should look like, and once you experience it, you can also use this as a tool and build your capacity to do this yourselves also as you continue on with your careers. We feel that the best way to learn is with feedback. That's why we're pulling together the best experts from Israel and also from Germany to give you support and one-on-one and intimate and professional feedback. We want you to boost your entrepreneurial skills. We heard a lot about risk-taking. We heard a lot about what it means to face with different challenges, and you're going to hear about that. For example, today during a panel, you're going to hear about entrepreneurs that succeeded, what are their biggest failures and fears and how they combated them. And also the teamwork is also going to actually have you, the way you boost your soft skills. You're going to access diverse commercialization know-how. We're going to use different universities, institutions in Israel. The course is going to be supported heavily by Huji Innovations, Hebrew University's Innovation Center. We're very happy to have them on board, and you're going to meet them and hear a lot from them. We also have spin-offs from the Technion that you'll hear today in panels, and experts from other organizations and leading research institutions in Israel, also looking for collaborations and continuing of support. And we also really want you to grow your network. Also within the Helmholtz Institution, I'm sure there's people in other centers that you haven't yet heard of, and maybe this can spark some joint collaborations, and definitely with the Israelis that you will see and meet for today. The process that we're going to go through the course is pretty much the commercialization process, and that's how we structured our program. We're going to start with market and customer research. We're going to understand what pain points, how to assess a business, how well it is, and does it hit a pain point, and think about who my customer is, what's his pain points, and what value does it do. And that'll continue with the next session of how to create a value proposition, that really creates value and something that people are willing to pay for. And moving onwards to business model, what different diverse ways of making money are there, what to do, what not to do, how to protect your intellectual property when leaving and thinking about leaving the lab. And lastly, what funding vehicles are out there, and really having you pitch your idea that you thought of together for the first time to see what feedback you can and cannot get. Beware, we'll try to support you, but we only have 5 sessions. So we can't take you the whole way. We're not going to take you to the finish line. Don't expect to finish this course with a startup with their next unicorn, but we can definitely show you the way. And we know that you're going to work with different teams, and you will work and get practical feedback and support, but it isn't limited in this session. We talk a lot about the Israeli entrepreneurial's habits and what we think are the key attributes and characteristics of the Israeli entrepreneur that helps him be successful. And each of the training, as I was saying at the beginning, each of the sessions is going to be around that term. So today is going to be Yalla. Yalla is about being flexible, is about speaking outside the box. It's about going with the flow and saying yes and having a yes approach. And that's why we're going to hear from in the panel of the entrepreneurs later today. We're going to talk about chutzpah. We're going to about being tachlis, being very practical. We're going to talk a little about how not to be a flyer, how not to miss out on opportunities, how to speak up, and firgun. Firgun is how to be nice and how to grow your network naturally and have your network sometimes working for you. Don't worry, we're going to delve into these as we go. We talked a little about the agenda, so we're not going to go through it. You have it also for each one of these sessions. We're picking experts and speakers from the Israeli ecosystem, from different research institutes, from different venture capitals, from different content providers, really giving you the best of the best, hand-picked kind of holistic experience to help you on your process. And besides that, we're going to offer two sorts of mentors. So each of you are going to have between the sessions, your team can meet mentors from Huji Innovation and from the hub to get support. And also, if you have an individual on your own idea, we will also give you some mentorship and initial traction on that, together with teamwork. So you saw that each of you got an extra invitation for another hour after each session for group teamwork. It's optional, but you are going to have to work in your teams. You can choose a better time that fits your teammates, but the idea is that you're going to together work it as a team, think about an idea, bounce ideas back off each other, and create that. And we see that that's an integral part of the process, a first tryout, because you know why? Good startups always work in teams, and successful startups have to work with teams. We understand that everybody brings different things to the table, and that's what also we want you to first experience today. We have power tools for us, and they're going to be with us throughout the course. Discord, I saw we have the initial traction. That's going to be our chat group. It's really important for you to go on the chat because I'm group number 5 and I want to meet my teammates. What time should I meet? Just go into the chat, and it's very easily to connect with one another. We're also going to send back out there important information, documents, funny gifts, and things to do throughout the course. So Discord is an important platform. Mirror is also a really cool tool that all the homework and the practical tools that you're going to gather through the course are going to be built on this platform. We're going to give you all the instructions later today, but based on the mirror and the different homework you get from each of the course, that's going to be the pitch, the final pitch you do in the brain date. And last but not least, the mentors, we're going to say a Google Sheet so you can put yourselves and your team with different mentors and to meet them between the different sessions. And before I hand it over, we want to talk a bit about the code of conduct, some housekeeping about we see in this training. I've been talking a lot about the teamwork. We see this as an integral part of the success. It might be challenging, as a lot of people come here sometimes with different goals. You have something specific you're working on, but yet we do think and we believe there's great value for working with a team. So be with us. Invest the time with the team, get to know each other, give respectful feedback to one another, and really try to enhance and get the most out of this, because we're in COVID, and we're in isolation, and not a lot of times we get actually to be working in a team. And so we're trying to be flexible towards this with timing. Choose the time that works with you, but dedicate time. And when you plan your next 5 sessions, know that there's going to be some work that you'll have to do, because you know better than me that the only way you actually learn is by doing homework and practicing it yourself. Cameras on. We know that's the best way for you to engage with us and we engage with you. So please try to have your cameras on. We won't judge your background or how messy your house is. It's fine, but just this way we can see your faces. People that speak with you, is much better to get your interaction. So it's a good time to put your cameras on. Be punctual, even though you're German, so I don't even have to tell you that because but your attendance throughout each of the sessions, it's built like a layer, like a juicy cake. So if you miss one, it really is slacking. So please try to make all the sessions and come and be on time. People generally jump to solutions in general in life and not really focusing enough on the problem. So at any time with your teamwork or yourself throughout the course, some of the things we think about is to focus on the actual problem that you're dealing with, and that's something that maybe can help you throughout the training. So what do we have today? We have a nice opening that we are about to finish. We're going to then invite Huji Innovation to the floor with Dr. Amnon Dekel, who's the executive director of Asper Huji Innovation. He's going to give an introduction to entrepreneurship, and then we're going to meet a panel of 3 successful entrepreneurs, one from Germany, one a spin-off from Technion, and one from Hebrew University. And we're going to have an open Q&A and interview, talking about and hearing firsthand from entrepreneurs themselves what they did, what their challenges was, and that's kind of going to kick us off on our way. So without further ado, I want to invite the Asper Huji Innovation team. This is a great opportunity to thank them, Amnon, Ayelet, and Keshet. It's been fantastic working with you. I'm really excited to work together, and the floor is yours.
Of course, I'm muted. Thank you very much, Yoni. Thank you very much, Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Germany, and thank you very much to the President of Helmholtz. We're very much excited for this session, and we are very happy about this collaboration with the EIT and with Helmholtz. So with no further ado, I will start my presentations here. So 1 second. It's going to take a second because I'm using 2 screens. It's important for me to see you when I'm doing the presentation. So 1 second. That's that. Can everyone see the first screen? Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
You can nod with your head. Yes, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so few words about the Hebrew University. We were founded in 1918, and we did have a few kind of famous initial founders. I think you've all heard of Albert Einstein, and I think you've all heard of Sigmund Freud. You might not have heard of Chaim Weizmann, but he was a world famous chemist during the time from England, and Martin Buber, the philosopher, and then Chaim Nachman Bialik, who was the Israeli national poet. And I think that kind of says something about the different types of people who started the university as a general university dealing with in all areas of humanity. 6 campuses, 7 faculties, we have 14 additional schools, over 1,000 research faculty members, 24,000 students. Actually, I think it's probably closer to 25 now. And 10% of our student body is international from 90 plus countries. So we're actually very proud of that. We have received quite a lot of prizes and accolades over our 100-year period. As you can see, 8 Nobel Prizes, Fields Medal in Mathematics, a Turing Award, and we're also very proud of the fact that we have over 150 ERC grants so far. And I think that number is a few months old, so it's probably larger at this point. So we're very proud of that. Over 11,000 patents at the university, which have been commercialized, 3,000 plus inventions, over 160 spin-off companies. We're considered in the top 100 innovative universities in the world, and number 32 as far as being an entrepreneurial university. We know that if they counted our faculty members' successes, we would probably be in the top 10, because unfortunately, for example, the Mobileye exit is not considered part of the data in this case. A little bit about us. So Huji Innovate is the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the university. We have 2 basic vectors of operation. One is to help students at the university develop an entrepreneurial mindset and skill set. We believe that the world is undergoing a major disruption. Not a pandemic one, but obviously that's what's been happening over the last year, but in general. And the more students enter the world with this mindset and this skill set, the better they will be able to operate in that world. Not necessarily starting up companies, but just even working within organizations, it's really important to have that. And the second vector is, of course, to be a catalyst that helps take the innovation and knowledge that is developed at the university and turn that into ventures that can solve real world substantial problems. And that is the second area. And we do a lot around this, but we don't have the time at this right now today to tell you more about that. So I would like to go directly to the start of the talk. 1 second. One more little thing I need to do here, and then we will start. Okay, so a little bit about me. As I said, I'm the executive director of the ASPER Huji Innovate organization, and also of JLM Impact, which is a consortium that we've created here in Jerusalem between the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design and the Azrieli, all the issues and problems that we deal with. My PhD is in computer science from the Hebrew University. I've also taught at the Technion, at the Tel Aviv University, at the IMD Business School in Lausanne in Switzerland, at New York University, and for 8 years I was the head of the Department of Software Engineering at the Shinkar Engineering Design and Art Institution in Tel Aviv. On the right, you can see a little bit of my professional background, an air traffic controller in the Israeli Air Force, which taught me a lot about psychology and about human capabilities. I've worked at Cytex. In the middle, you see some of the projects that I've worked on over the years. For example, with the New York Times, we were nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for a project we did in 1996. I've worked with the Rolling Stones rock group. I created the first Discovery Channel online website. And on the right, you see some of the startups that I've been part of. Earth Noise, our biggest success and our biggest failure. We were the world's #1 video sharing site in the year 2001. And if you remember, it took a few more years for that area to grow and for Google to buy YouTube. So we had to sell this for lower multiples than what we were hoping for, but we learned a lot in that process. And additional startups that dealt with, some of them had to deal with some of my work at the university. So let's get started. And it's really important for me to make sure you understand this. We're talking about business, and we're not talking about science. Science is really important in the sense that it can give you a competitive advantage, that it can help you solve problems. But at the end of the day, you have to look at this from the point of view of a business, and we'll talk about that substantially throughout this workshop. So I would like to ask you all a question. What is innovation? And feel free either to shout it out in the voice-wise, or you can also put it out in the chat room. Any ideas? What is innovation?
Hi, Amon. It's Julian from Berlin. I would say it's an invention that enters the market.
Say again, I'm sorry.
I would say it's an invention that enters successfully to the market.
Okay, that's not bad. That's actually a pretty good idea. Any other ideas? I see somebody saying creative disruption, or something new which really arrived at customers' markets and creates value. Something that is unique, special, and has more value. All of these are great answers, and I'm going to show you the one that we like. Oh, sorry. Did somebody want to say something?
Here, I think innovation is moving from the space that is known to another space that is unknown. So this transition that cannot be done by machine or other well-known technology is a part of innovation.
That's interesting. It's the first time I've heard that, so I'm going to quote you on that. I thought that was a really interesting one. So here's the one that we like. It's kind of a simple definition, and it is basically, second. Okay. So it's basically value creation by solving problems in new ways, okay? And of course, when we think about universities and we think about research institutes, what are we if not places of innovation? We're there to create new knowledge, to understand the world in better ways, to define things. And again, when we go into the business perspective, we're talking about a value creation, and that usually gets translated into solving a problem for somebody and gaining economic value from that, but in new ways. And the new ways is the important thing. And of course, the knowledge coming out of the academic sphere is really important in generating the new ways of solving these problems. This brings me to the second question that I'd like to ask you. What is entrepreneurship? Who would like to take a stab at that? Anybody writing anything? Don't be shy, people. There is no right answer, as you've, I think, understood. What do you see entrepreneurship being?
Like to bring it to the market, some idea, some innovation.
So you're saying I'd like to take an innovation and bring it to market. Mm-hmm. That is one definition, definitely, of entrepreneurship. Somebody writes, having the guts to turn your idea into a business. That's a great definition. Thank you. Take the risk for himself and his people to be profitable. Okay, that's also a good definition. So this is the definition that we like. And as you'll see, it's a little bit generic. Basically, entrepreneurship is the capacity and the willingness to develop, organize, and manage a venture along with any of its risks in order to either make a profit or to improve the world. As we know, there is many, and maybe you would say most entrepreneurs are there to make a financial profit. And if we're talking about business entrepreneurship, we're usually talking about making a massive profit. And we're talking about 10x to 1,000x, basically. But there is also the option of improving the world. And lately, over the last number of years, there has started a discourse around the areas of what's called impact investment and impact philanthropy. And the idea there is, how can we improve the world while also making a profit to do it? And somebody's asking here, well, why is this an or and not an and? Well, it's exactly what I was saying now about impact philanthropy or impact entrepreneurship, where it is the and, where it is to make a profit and improve the world.
Amnon, your screen is still at what is innovation.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Not my screen. Interesting. So I'm gonna, it says your screen sharing is paused. I have no idea why. So I'm gonna stop this and I'm gonna start again. Share screen. And where are we? One. Tell me if you see the window. No. One second, I'm going to try again. I'm going to do it again. And can you see it now?
Yes,
Kesha?
that works.
You
Yes,
can see it?
we could see, but it's not presented.
No, now I'm going to do it. Now you can see it, okay?
Yes. Perfect.
But now I don't have the presenter view. Okay, so as I was saying, it's not an or, it definitely can be an and, but in most cases still today, it still is an or. Most business entrepreneurship is there to make substantial profit, okay? Some of it is make small profit, that would be a lifestyle entrepreneurship, but business entrepreneurship, if you go to an investor and you want them to fund your company, they are expecting to see multiple returns. They're like I was saying, 10x, hopefully they want to do a Google or they want to do a Facebook, they like to see 1,000x on their money. I completely agree that it should be an and in this case, where we should be also improving the world in everything we're doing. What do you think? Are innovation and entrepreneurship the same thing? Any feelings? You can just kind of nod your head for agreement or disagreement if you agree or don't agree. So I'm seeing that most people are saying no. Basically, we don't agree, and I agree with your disagreement. Basically, second, I agree with you. You should make sure that you're seeing the right thing. Right now, we're talking about the key differences. Basically, innovation is about creating something new, whereas entrepreneurship is turning an idea into something concrete. And note a key difference in this, that Entrepreneurship does not need to be based on something new. Okay, we take the example of McDonald's. McDonald's has a very successful business model, and I can open up a McDonald's franchise, and I will be an entrepreneur. I'm going to take on the risk. I'm going to bring in people. I'm going to build physical premises, etc. But it's not based on anything new. And that is still completely business entrepreneurship. Whereas if I'm Tesla and I want to create a whole new category of electric-based vehicles or battery technologies, etc., I'm basically taking new ideas and new technologies and turning them into something concrete in the business sense. So that is a distinction that we make in this world. So this brings me to the next question to all of you. Okay, what is a startup? You know, it's easy for us in the sense that we come from Startup Nation, and basically startups are a very integral part of the world of entrepreneurship. But what are they? What are your feelings or what are your ideas about that? Anybody have an idea? What is a startup?
Startup is a combination of entrepreneurship and innovation, I think.
It's a fast-growing new business.
I like the first one, the combination of innovation and entrepreneurship. The second one was a fast-growing business. That's interesting, but usually when you start to go into the growth phase, as we'll see later on, that's when you stop becoming a startup. Any other ideas? So I'm going to be, from now on, you're going to be hearing a lot about a person who has become very substantial in the world of entrepreneurship, and that is a person called Steve Blank. You might have heard of him. Steve Blank is an entrepreneur, multiple entrepreneur. He's created over $8 billion of value in his startups, and he is a professor at Stanford and at Berkeley. And he says a startup is a temporary organization used to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. Okay, let's unpack that. First of all, it's a temporary organization. Why is it temporary? Because a startup can either succeed or fail. A startup is never just plod along and not go anywhere. And when we mean a success in a startup, that means you become a growth company. That becomes your graphs are going to go up. And that's when you stop being a startup. You found a solution, you found a repeatable and scalable business model, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. When you do not know all the names of the people in your company, that's when you start being a startup in a sense. And the repeatable and scalable part is, of course, that you need to find a solution that will bring in enough income to your company in order to be able to grow it, develop it, etc. So this brings us to the next question because we used the phrase business model earlier. Any ideas what a business model is? And we're talking about a model, we're not talking about a business plan. We don't believe in business plans. We feel that business plans are things that the moment you finish writing them, basically they've become useless.
An algorithm how to make money.
I like that. A human algorithm as to make money. Any other ideas?
A method to scale the business. To make it. Sorry?
I didn't hear the first word.
Yeah, a method to basically scale the business, to make this, to upscale the business.
Okay.
Costs and benefits around your value proposition.
Okay, great. So we're already hearing things that we're going to talk about later, but we're not there yet. I'm also reading here in the chat. Let's see. How do you make customers pay for your product or service? A value chain to sustain businesses, a path for generating income, or a business strategy to make profit. Basically, all of the things you're saying are correct. This is what we like to use as a simple definition of the business model. A company's core strategy for doing business in a profitable manner. And when we look at that, it's actually a very simple thing. In the world of business, there are actually two sides to everything. One is the cost of doing business, and the other one is revenue from doing that business. So in cost, it basically means, what am I spending money on? It might be about my workers, might be upon equipment, etc. And then revenue is the money that I'm making from selling my products in whatever way I do, and there are multiple different models to do that. And I think it's obviously to all of you that for a company to be successful, the blue side needs to be larger than the red side, and that is exactly what turns something into repeatable and scalable. Obviously, if the red side is larger, you're going to go into you're going to need to take a lot of loans. You're going to go into debt, and at the end of the day, you're going to need to sell your company or close your company. So, how many startups succeed? I think we've all heard kind of the numbers out there. Who thinks that 50% of startups succeed?
10%.
Raise your hand if you think that. Somebody says about 1%. Or anybody else?
5-10.
1% of startups succeed. 5 to 10% of startups succeed. So it really depends on the specific vertical that you talk about. But in general, if you look at all the data, between 80 and 95% of startups fail. Or in other ways, some would say between 80 and 99% of startups fail. Somebody says depends on the definition of what failure would mean. To me, failure is basically you either close the company and return the money to your investors and don't continue operations. So the major question now for us is, what is the number one reason for failure? If there is so much failure, let's learn from it. And what do you think is the number one reason that startups fail? Someone says no market need. Missing product
business plan.
fit. You guys are studying this. Okay.
Good management.
Management issues. Reach a point where red is much bigger than blue. Usually that point is the beginning of the process. It usually starts with red is larger than blue. Team problems, not understanding the customer. Everything you guys are saying is exactly correct. But the number one reason for companies to fail is that there is no product market fit. And I saw that somebody already used that. We're going to go deeper into that later in the program. But basically, this means that on the one hand, you've got a product. On the other hand, you've got the market. And then you introduce that product to the market and no one is interested. Basically, no one wants to pay for it. And that is obviously a problem. Steve Blank likes to say about this, build and they will come is not a strategy. It is a prayer. And that is because a lot of people do exactly that. They think they have a great idea. They build that idea, meaning they spend a lot of time, money, and resources. And then they go out to the market and then they get a slap in the face. So, and as other people were saying, there are many other reasons for failure: team issues, funding, competition, pricing, marketing, et cetera, and we're going to go a little deeper into that later on in the program. So with that kind of depressing number, how do you succeed? You know, we've heard a lot about the successes, whereas we don't hear too much about so many of the failures, but they are there definitely. So basically, the idea is that you should stop guessing. You should stop kind of standing there and thinking, I have a great idea. I think this will be a killer idea. Sometimes you might have been in the old days when we sat in pubs with our friends. We might have sat there and somebody would say something. We'd say, wow, it could be a really successful startup, wouldn't it? And the idea is that is not enough. So from stop guessing, you need to move to start validating. You need to validate these ideas. Now, of course, the question is, okay, but how do I validate these ideas? And the answer to that is very simple. Get out of the building. As Steve Blank says, no facts inside your building, so get the heck outside. And what he means by this is that it's one thing to write something interesting on a whiteboard and create all these graphs and plan your product. But until you get out of the building and speak to real people who might be your potential and real customers, you are not going to know if this is of interest to anybody. And that is an important part of the process that you need to do. It's sometimes unpleasant. It's sometimes uncomfortable. Some people might say, but I'm a technologist. I don't want to talk to people. I'll bring in a marketing person to go talk to people. No, you're not doing marketing at this point. You need to understand whether the problem that you have identified is a real problem, is a painful problem, and it's so painful that people are willing to put their hand into their pockets and take some money and give that money to you. If they are not, and in many cases, you might go to a focus group and they'll say, wow, great idea, wonderful, I'd love it. But if they're not willing to actually give you money, then it's worthless. So the question is, of course, how do you do this? And this is where the lean startup methodology comes into play. And what we like about it, is that it is an empirical approach to product market fit. Okay, we all come from research organizations. We love the empirical method. And the empirical method basically says, okay, I have a theory, I have a hypothesis, I'm going to develop an experiment, I'm going to run that experiment, I'm going to gather results, I'm going to analyze those results, and I'm going to reach a conclusion. And many times that conclusion will be failure. Okay, what do I need to change and fix in the experiment in order to move forward, et cetera, et cetera. And that is an iterative process that we know very well. And this is the exact process that we're talking about here. It's a circle or a cycle between creating, measuring, and learning. The question, of course, is, well, what do I create? And the answer is you create the smallest, cheapest, quickest thing that you can do in order to get valuable insight. Okay, of course, there are many, there's a wide range of different issues here, but and an MVP in one vertical could look very different from an MVP in another vertical. But again, the idea is something really simple, something really quick, something really cheap that you do not fall in love with. Because guess what? In most cases, when you talk to people about that, you're going to get slapped. You're going to, if you do a real conversation about that, you will see that most people are not going to put their hands into their pocket for this. And therefore, you want to do this really quickly. So you do that. And then you need, of course, to measure. How do you measure? You can interview, you can run questionnaires, you can actually gather data. For example, you can create a landing page that says, whoever wants to sign up for my, my new product that will do A, B, C, D, sign up here. And that will give you some signals. If no one signs up, even though you spent $100 on Google AdWords to get the word out, then you know that maybe there's no interest. If thousands of people have signed up, you know, okay, maybe this is interesting. Let's continue the process. And that is part of the analytical phase of this. What is the data that I've gathered? What does that data teach me? And changes do I need to make in this next iteration? And this is a loop that you will be going through multiple times through the lifetime of your startup. And that brings us to the question, well, is there a process to this? Is there a life cycle to a startup? And in general, there is, and here it is. As you can see, we start with opportunity recognition that we've spoken a little bit about. We then kind of ideate and try to develop a solution for something. Then we do maybe feasibility testing. If we have IP around this, we might think about protecting that IP. We then go and develop a business model. Then we'd mobilize resources, if it's money for funding, if it's the team, etc. Then we'd start the company, we'd build the company. Hopefully, we'll get enough traction that we can go to market, and then one day we'll hit growth. So my question to you guys, oh, and of course, sorry, this, in parallel to this, we're gathering data, we're testing, and we're learning, and developing our product. So my question to all of you is this really how it is? Do you think this is how things look like in the life cycle of a startup? What do you think? Again, you can nod your head if you think yes or no.
Not in reality.
Not reality. So we agree, because this is how it is. You're going to be moving up and down, forwards and backwards. You're going to get up in the morning and feel that you're on top of the world, and then you're going to get a phone call, and you're going to ask yourself, why are you punishing yourself like this? Why are you not doing something else? And then later on in the day, you're going to have a breakthrough with a product and you're going to get some great feedback. This is going to be a roller coaster ride emotionally and professionally. And you need to understand this. It's a process. Sometimes you're going to get feedback from your customers, which are going to take you 2 steps backwards in the product development. You're going to need to make changes. And then hopefully at the end, you will reach this growth phase where the graphs are going to start going up and you're going to say, okay, looks like we have some product market fit here. Now let's maximize that. So we talked about ideas, we talked about opportunities, and the question at the end of the day is, are all ideas an opportunity? And to answer that, of course, we need to ask ourselves, well, what is an opportunity? And the way we like to define opportunity is that it is a favorable set of circumstances that creates the need for a new product, a service, or a business idea. Now, that is an opportunity in the world of entrepreneurship. The question is, of course, okay, great, how do I find these opportunities? And to find these opportunities, you basically have 3 basic options. Of course, you can observe trends. And again, being in the world of science, you are part of creating those trends. You are seeing the bleeding edge of many things. You're seeing further across the horizon of where things are going. And it doesn't matter what area you're in because you are creating this future. But if you also read blogs and if you see what people are talking about and if you read the news, you'll see that there are certain major trends that are happening. The second thing is finding a gap in the market. What does a gap mean? A gap means that on the one side we have a problem, and on the other side we have somebody who is able or willing to solve that problem, but no one has done that yet. So the question is, can I solve that problem? And if I can solve that problem, I might be able to build a bridge across this gap and then create value for these people. So an important point is you always need to be thinking about your customers. What are their needs? What are their problems? And we're going to get deeper into that in the second session. But if you're not focused on them and you're in love with your technology and your ideas, and you want to create the best technology that is the most scalable, that is the most unique, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you have a pragmatic solution that is good enough to solve these problems for the users. And the world is, there are graveyards full of startups that have created the best technology, which were beaten by companies that created good enough technology in a quicker fashion, in a more pragmatic fashion. And you always need to keep that in mind. It's a different scale. I'm sure you've all heard about, or maybe some of you have heard about the Betamax versus VHS a war that was happening in the 1970s. Those who don't know, Betamax was a technology that Sony created for video recording, and VHS was a technology that was developed by competitors like Panasonic and I think Philips. The Betamax technology was clearly superior, higher resolution, better quality, smaller in size, etc. Guess who won? VHS. If you guys are old enough, you know that your parents were using VHS cassettes in most cases, and very little. And do you know why VHS won the war? Any ideas? I have to say, you know, I'd have to say, sadly, VHS won the war because of porn. Because porn was used by companies who were selling porn. And unfortunately, that is what turned the graph on that. So it is not always, or in many cases, it has nothing to do with the capabilities of your technology. It has to do with, can you package a good enough technology and get it out in time to solve real problems for people. So who has not heard of Y Combinator here? So if there's anyone who hasn't heard, Y Combinator, it would be considered one of the world's, maybe the world's most successful accelerator. It's a program run out of Silicon Valley. It's about 15 years old, and it's created some of the companies that you might have heard about, Dropbox, Airbnb and things like that came out of Y Combinator. And they say this about what your problem should be when you're looking at problems. And when you look at this, this is a really impressive list. And when I looked at it, I said, this is unrealistic. There's no way I'm going to get 100 on every one of these things. And that is correct. They would agree with me on that, but they'd say you would try to get as high on value on each of these different points. So they would say your problem should be popular. What do they mean by that? That means a lot of people have it. Your problem should be growing. It's not stagnant. It's not becoming smaller. It's a problem that's always growing. Remember, going back to what is a startup, you want a market that enables to create a sustainable and growing business model. It should be urgent in the sense that people need a solution now and not in a year's time. It should be mandatory in the sense that without your solution, this problem cannot be solved. It should be expensive in the sense that you can make a nice profit by selling it. Of course, there are many problems in the world that are not going to get solved by companies because there's no way they can be profitable. And therefore, if a problem that is had by a number of people cannot make me money in the blue area, then I'm not going to put the resources into it. And it needs to be frequent in the sense that it's something that happens frequently, not a problem that happens once every decade or once every 15 years, but something that happens many, many times every single year. So if I can get something, if I can find a problem that hits all of these, I have a potential for a potential for something that is winnable. I have a potential for something that is big. Of course, going from a potential to an actual success, there are many steps in between, as we know, and nothing promises a success in the process. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the session that I'm talking about, and now I want to talk about Yala, as Yoni talked about at the beginning of the day. So what is Yala? If we translate Yala into English, it would be, let's go, let's do it, or hurry up, okay? If you have children, or you're married, or you have a, what do you say, a couple, if you're part of a couple, and you want to go out, sometimes we're waiting for them, right? Because maybe our partner is taking time to get dressed up, etc. So in Hebrew, we'd say, Yalla, come on, we got to go. Let's go. Sometimes our children are kind of making us late. So we say, Yalla, let's go. Yalla can also be, guys, let's do it. Here's something that we need to do. Let's do it. Let's pick up these pieces and put them aside. Let's write this code, etc. And it also means hurry up. And the idea here is that your startup is not going to happen until you make it happen. Yalla, just do it, as Nike used to say. A startup should never be something that you overthink. You can always delay. And there are multiple ways of not doing the Yalla. I was part of a startup where one of our investors decided to take a management position in the startup, and he put a lot of his money into the company, and he didn't want to go to market because he wanted to go to market only when the product was perfect, which, if you've been listening to what I've said over the last 20-something minutes, you know that is a big mistake. You do not want a perfect product. You want a product, as some successful entrepreneurs would say to you, if your initial product is not something you're ashamed about, you've wasted time and you've wasted money. You want to learn as fast as possible from that. So that is Yalla. And this brings us finally to our first group work session, which it will be is an icebreaker to get you guys to know each other. So what you are going to do is basically you're going to go into the breakout rooms, and Keshet will be sending you there in a second. In the breakout room, you need to introduce yourselves to the other people. You need to tell them what your superpower is, and you need to tell them what you think you can bring to a team. Okay? Now, you don't know the other people, so at this point, it's not that what do I bring to the team in relative to the others. It's what I bring to the team. I have knowledge in cybersecurity. I can develop an application. I know how to do biological testing. All of these powers that you have are something that can be of value. And what is your superpower is a more abstract question, and I'll let you guys deal with it by yourselves. Pick a team name and schedule time to work with your group on the assignment. And as Yoni was saying earlier, the breakout room will be available for an additional hour after this session today, so that you guys can continue in the process and then decide when and how you'd like to continue the process of working. So the icebreaker will work in the following fashion. I'm going to do a stop share right now, and then I'm going to do a share to another window. I just need to make
sure.
Say again?
Hi, before we put them into the breakout rooms, would you like to quickly explain the homework? They won't have time to really touch it now, but maybe it's a good time to explain.
Yeah, sure. I can do that. Okay. So I'll go back to Zoom and do the share screen. Okay. So can everyone see? Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, okay, I'll talk about the homework and then we'll go back to here. So the homework for this session is the 5-problem hunt and the 5-problem graph. The 5-problem hunt basically says, we'd like you to find 5 problems and then estimate your fit for solving them, your team fit for solving them, okay? And then what advantages do you have in order to solve that problem? So you'll be finding this in the mirror room that you'll be showing you in a second. And you'll be able to kind of grab these sticky notes and put them here. And then you're going to basically describe a problem, okay? Anything you like. And then why you think and how you think you can solve that problem. You're fit for doing that. So that is the first part of the homework. The second part of the homework is you're going to take those 5 problems and you're going to graph them on two vectors. One is potential. And when we mean potential, basically what we mean is, we mean how much business potential do you think it might have? Now, if I was you, I would say, how does he think that we would know how to ascertain the business potential? I don't expect that. I'm asking you to just kind of think in a naive fashion about that, okay? We all can do naive type of estimations, okay? Obviously, if we all know, for example, that people that like to see soccer games or football games are quite a large group of people, versus people that might want to see another type of sport that is less popular would be smaller. So we have this kind of naive method capability to do that. Later in the program, we'll talk about more rational processes and analytical processes to make these decisions. But right now, take your problem and try to put it on this graph. Personal fit versus potential. And I think it's obvious that you're looking for something that lives here, something that would have large potential value and something that you have a personal fit or team fit in order to be able to solve that. And that would be considered a good opportunity. Obviously, something that is a very small potential and that you have no fit for would not be a very good opportunity. So that is the homework. Again, will be available if you have questions. And we're going back now to the icebreaker. So what we're going to do now, as I said, we are going to send you an invitation. Or have you already sent the invitation, Skesha?
No, not yet. I'll open the rooms in a minute.
The Miro? Okay, so you're going to go.
Oh, the Miro.
We're going to send you into the. Say again?
Sorry. The Miro, you all have received from me in your emails an invitation to the Miro as well. Within the Discord, within your team, I put a link to your specific Miro board. So you all should have that. And if you don't, please let me know.
And I'd like to take a minute just to kind of show you around Miro. So let me find the window. 1 second. View. Exit screen and Miro. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this and do a share screen and Miro. So Miro is a group share board and basically allows you to create a share board, which is a nice physical space that has kind of has a lot of Zoom capabilities to it. You can put different media types into it, and within it, for example, if you take the problem fit, I'm kind of navigating this space using my fingers, and then I can take a note from here, put it here. I can start writing in it, and I can make it larger if I want, etc. So that's kind of the idea. That's a way, and you will each be receiving a link to the Miro depending upon your team number. So this is, for example, the Team 2 Miro that they'd be assigned to, and we have 8 of these, and you can see. And this Miro we will be updating it with additional tasks later on. And as you see, we have a guest sculptor, we have a guest drafter, and we have Avidan Neumann here. So this is kind of a workplace that you guys will be working with throughout the project, and you will be receiving, as you see here, this is session 1, you'll be receiving additional tasks here going forward. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share right now. Are there any questions before we send you to the breakout rooms? Keshet, how are we doing time-wise?
We're good. It's time to put everyone in breakout rooms.
Great. So we're going to give you about 15 minutes in the breakout rooms, get to know each other, do the tasks as we've said. We'll copy that into the chat so you also have that in front of your eyes when you get into the breakout rooms. And then we'll be bringing you back for the next session, which will be the panel that Yoni is going to be interviewing. Great.
Good luck, and also maybe if you have that 1 or 2 minutes to also stretch after the breakout rooms before the panel and get up a bit and before we move on.
Yep, definitely.
And the externals, all the external guests that are joining us today, you have like a 10-15 minute break, and we'll see yourselves. We'll see you for the panel. If you want to join a specific group, that's also okay. Just let us know which group, and we can put you. We can add you.
If there's anyone here who was not put in a breakout room who is supposed to be part of a team, please let me know. Oh, Arthur, I see. And I will make sure that you get there.
We also have Hung in group 7. There we go. Arnie, are you joining a team or are you from the staff member?
Thank you for asking. I'm a staff member, and I think I'm fine with having a break and doing other stuff.
Sounds good. Which center are you from?
I'm from the president's office in Berlin at Helmholtz Center. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
Thank you for that great presentation.
And spent some time in the US at the Caltech, and then returned to Germany and finally got the full professorship at Geomar here in Kiel. The gate, I would say the marine gate to the Baltic Ocean. And here I focused my research on corals and on the reconstruction of past climate and environmental conditions. And it's actually not only the data what I was interested in, rather the method. So we applied mostly isotope methods to reconstruct the conditions of the past. And doing that, we realized that some of the methods could also be applied in medicine. And that was actually the impetus for creating a company, because we worked before on corals. Corals are made mainly out of calcium, and calcium is also a main constituent of bones. And therefore, we found that some methods you can apply to corals and reconstruction of past climate information. You can also monitor the health status of bones. So far.
Thank you. So what does the company do?
Oh, the company we founded is Osteolabs. I show you the test. We developed, you can see it a little bit. So we developed a test which gives you an early and very early information about the health status for a very particular disease, for osteoporosis, a disease mostly women suffer from, and it's also called bone loss. And in Germany, about 6 million people alone suffer from this disease. And the big problem is with the conventional methods, you cannot detect or diagnose this disease very early. Rather, if you are diagnosed with the traditional methods, you already have it for years. And that's a big problem for the treatment and to get healing from this disease. And we are much faster. Actually, we know about the disease the hour after it started.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. Professor Uri Banin, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. I studied chemistry and physics at the Hebrew University. It's where I also did my PhD in physical chemistry, looking at ultra-fast reactions in solution. And I moved into nanoscience, in particular research on nanocrystals, on semiconductor nanocrystals during my postdoc in the 1990s in the University of California at Berkeley. After which I returned to Israel, to the Hebrew University, to form my own group back in 1997. I was also a founder of our Nano Center and led this Nano Center for 10 years. My research deals with indeed size, shape, composition effects in nanocrystals, in particular in semiconductor materials, and applying them in diverse fields, ranging from display technologies to different applications in alternative energy, and also potentially in biology and medicine. And I was the founder of Q-Lite Nanotech back in 2009, which focused on the development of nanocrystals for display applications, because in these materials we have a very unique feature of tuning emission color with size, and we can achieve the excellent control over colors. It found an interesting application in displays, and that's where Q-Lite Nanotech started its endeavor and its work.
How's Q-Lite Nanotech today?
So this company was a strategic alliance with Merck, and in 2015, Q-Lite was fully acquired by Merck. And in fact, it serves as a global R&D center for what we call colloidal quantum materials for Merck to this day.
So after this exit with Merck, what are you moved to Hawaii?
Well, during the time with Q-Lite and so on, my primary job, I have to say, is at the Hebrew University. My research with my students and also the teaching and so on. And we still have in mind additional technologies which we would like to commercialize. I myself am still learning about how to be a good entrepreneur, because this is not easy to take a technology out of the lab, and where we're very much interested in very basic research and bring it to the marketplace. So the next thing we want to try to commercialize is actually photocatalytic nanoparticles, namely particles that will actually generate some chemical functionality after illumination with light, for example, in the polymer industry and in energy applications. But that is still ongoing and not yet a company formed around this technology.
Okay, and thank you, Uri. And Rafi, nice to meet you, Dr. Rafi Cohen.
Rafi Chen.
Rafi Chen, sorry.
Okay, thank you for the invitation to the panel. I am the CEO and the founder of VerifyU. I'm also a member of the engineering faculty at the Ariel University and a member of ISO Biometric Committee. I have my PhD in computer science from the Technion. My field of research is the cryptanalysis of cryptographic hash functions. I was the first to attack SHA-1, which is a very popular crypto hash function, and it was a significant achievement. After my graduation, I was asked by my advisor, Professor Eli Biam, to perform some research, and my conclusion from this research was that remote verification is an unsolved problem. All existing methods such as the username and password, facial recognition, fingerprint, etc., have different type of issues, and we need a different method for node verification. The basic idea that I had was that the users can be identified by their different reaction to random instructions that they receive. And in my case, the instruction is to write few random letters on the touch screen. The user is verified by the way he responds to the instructions that he received. In general, I can say that we have the advantages of physiological biometrics such as facial recognition, fingerprint, and etc. And the advantages of password without the disadvantages of these methods. For example, one of the disadvantages of facial recognition and fingerprint is that you cannot recover from identity theft. One of the disadvantages of password is that you forget your password, and it also does not authenticate you because you can give your credential to someone else, and the system cannot say that it is you or someone else. So there are many disadvantages in these methods that are in use today, and the idea of identifying a user by the way he reacts to an instruction he receives. First of all, it solves all the problems that the current methods have, and it is applicable very easily. So.
Okay, thank you. So we saw three different, three types of models also, and stories. And we see Anton leaving the Helmholtz Institution and pursuing a venture, as Uri pursuing, but also returning home to the Hebrew University and still ongoing. And also Rafi taking and moving from Verify You. Verify You. Thank you. And I want to ask the three of you, at what point did you realize you're working on your research, you're excited by what you're doing? At what point did you realize, and I hear you now speaking in the words of industry and pain points and business channel, but at what point did something kind of change in your mind and say, well, actually there might be a commercial impact here, there might be something interesting here, and maybe it's time for us to look outside and engage with industry? So Anton, when was that first realization of yours?
Well, in the beginning, we didn't took it really serious. So we realized that we can close calcium budgets very easily with isotopes. So for corals, then actually I played around, forgive me, with my little son, and my little son forgave me already, because I used his urine to test what is the difference of his urine and my urine and the urine of my technician. And so
be careful, this is recorded. This
yeah, I know. So, but it is a kind of a naive approach. But then we realized that already the isotopic value of the urines behaved as we would expect, that you have a good signal on the balance or impression on the balance. And we realized that we can quantify it. So because I was those days in my middle ages, so I expected a certain value. My 4-year-old son, he was of course growing. You would expect a totally different value. And my technician, she was already suffering from osteoporosis, and you would expect a totally different. Everything made sense. And from that point on, I realized that it might be important because it is a serious disease. It's the 8th most serious disease people can suffer from. In Germany, the costs, just the cost, not the pain. Don't think on the pain. Just the costs are in the order of about 5 billion euros. Germany is spending the healthcare system to cover for femur type or osteoporosis like femur fractures and so on. So, and then if you start reading, you see that and you speak to medical people, it's very important that you speak about things. And you speak about medical people, they say, oh, the methods we have, we cannot really diagnose it early. And if we diagnose it, it's too late. And what should we do? So I realized that we have something important. Mm-hmm. And people started then to ask, oh, can you do a measurement for me? Oh, you know, that thing of kind of thing. Then from a certain point on, I thought we now make it serious, and you make it only serious if you commercialize it. And this was also very important for the Helmholtz Society to give extra money to really commercialize the idea.
Fantastic. And the money from Helmholtz and the support in grant or the growth funding vehicles is something very important that we're going to also touch on throughout the course. But who funds this? How do I start? And of course, some of these things cost money. Thank you. So Uri, when was your aha moment, if you could call it like this, and like what was the first step that you did?
So I think I'm coming from a basic science perspective, actually. So it's and also a material platform where we make materials and we study their properties and do a lot of optical spectroscopy, for example. So it doesn't come to mind automatically to go into a venture with that type of research. So I would say the first thing is to talk about in favor of patenting as an academic, where I realized, I would say quite late for me in my career, in a sense, not for my students. It was already when I was a faculty member that we really need to, the first step is to patent any new discovery that may have in the future some potential value. And that was, I would say, the first trigger. And I had an endeavor where I was indeed in touch with a company called Nanosys, which was one of the pioneering company in nanotechnology from Palo Alto. And they were licensing technologies in nanoscience and nanotechnology out of different universities. And indeed, they licensed a few of my early patents. And so that kind of gave me a trigger to further consider how we can commercialize and think about applications with my materials even more deeply. And the trigger to actually jump into a cold pool of being part of this new company as a founder, as a scientific founder, in that case, the instrumental aspect came about by the tech transfer company of the Hebrew University, Yisum, which is actually busy in commercializing the inventions of the researchers. So to do that, you first have to have inventions, of course, after a good idea. But in that case, there was a scout, Dr. Volker Hilarius, who came from Merck, from Germany, and he was scouting for technologies. And I presented my research, and this discussion was instrumental, was very key to understand, okay, now we have something we can do, which is very important with a big market in the display field. And that would be a very interesting jump into a venture that we can spin out from my lab. So that's how it was for me in this early stage.
Wow, so it sounds like Yisum, like the TTO, had a big role also in bringing the industry player and kind of bridging, minding the gap and supporting kind of this process.
It's a facilitator both in the patenting part, which of course we do the research and the patent and so on, but they help with the funding and with the patenting processes and all of that's related to that, and then in making the connections. So then people come to Hebrew University to listen about different technologies, and that's a very good way, a very good window of exposure, which you can never know which meeting will end up with something very interesting also towards a venture.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that's also very interesting to the people in the audience that there's scientists, but there's also Helmholtz staff in the audience. So I'm sure you're taking notes and you're interested in your role in supporting this process. So thank you, Uri. Rafi, for you, I want to jump past the idea that you decided you're gonna leave the lab with this idea, and can you describe your first steps, like who, in terms of your partners, who did you partner with? How did you know to choose that person or people or organizations, and maybe tell us a little about that.
Okay, my partner was a programmer in the army, so he had the skills to do what I didn't know how to do, and he worked in a security company in CyberArk. He left the company and joined me full time. So we got the start for implementing the idea and show that we have something that can be commercialized, and we got some fund from the Innovation Authority and the private investor, and we started the company from there. So it was. But the start of the company was to get this programmer from the army that has the experience. I don't know if this is something that you can get in any other country except for Israel, but it is something that helped us a lot to start.
Mm-hmm. So that's very common to hear. The strong network that the Israelis create during the army a lot of time have a big impact on the high tech ecosystem, and the networking, the ecosystem power that creates from that. And here's Rafi's a live example to do that. But Rafi, what would your advice be to those who haven't been in a mandatory army in Germany to go about that?
Building the team is the most, maybe one of the most significant step in getting idea to be commercialized. So I don't know how to do it. The lack of getting this programmer and then collect some, it's a net of connections that you can use. I don't know what is the equivalent in other countries, but here it is something that was very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Soon we're going to open it up to the audience, so have a think if there's anything specific you want to ask. And Anton, I was going to ask you about one of the biggest challenges. Amnon before showed us the path of an entrepreneur that kind of looks like a big scribbly line, full of up and down. So can you share some of the challenges, the biggest challenges that you faced?
Yeah, there actually was a few challenges, quite a few. So first of all, we are in the field of medical product. So the level to pass the level to come to a product is relatively high, because you have to follow, or you have to fulfill a series of regulations. You cannot produce something and put to the market. So you need a CE sign, this European certificate. You need to show that you have a quality management. You need to prove by a clinical study that your method is working. So it's not only that you test, as I naively said, that you test your son and then, okay, I have a biomarker. Rather, we have to prove it by a series of clinical studies and so on. This was quite a challenge, because the first what you need and realize is that you need a lot of money. That's really a thing, because you're paying off a clinical study. You are talking about €250,000, having a quality management system again. So you start to have quite a financial burden, and you have to convince people that's worth to invest in that. That was, leave it with these 2 points. That was quite a big challenge.
Thank you. Andrea?
Just because I know we're going to deep dive into the funding instruments in the last session, but I think that was interesting what Anton just said, because I think this is also the difference between Israel and Germany, and also the work the Innovation Authority does. And I think maybe you can explain or the three of you, just maybe also, in terms of the funding and the obstacles, and when you started talking about getting money, because in Israel it's more, the higher the risk, the better the chances, you get funded or supported, which in Germany is absolutely not the case. So maybe if you could just speak about, so we see maybe the difference about the like some obstacles you were facing.
You want me to start, or
maybe Uri?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the least favorite part for me, the fundraising part, obviously being the scientist in the group of the venture. But yeah, we need the funding. So I would say that you are right that in Israel there is a startup ecosystem which is well developed. But on the other hand, in my field of material science and nanoscience with materials, this is not a very easy path to take. We did have the advantage of having a strategic partnership with Merck. And we did go to, through the Israel Innovation Authority in my case, to match funding, to enhance our funding. So it's the government agency that supports innovation and so on in industry and and to some extent translation from academy to industry as well. So we use that vehicle, let's say equivalent, let's say to EU funding, but that's the vehicle in Israel. And we had a few programs of that type to help us create the needed R&D program to run it, as well as Merck. The special situation of such a strategic investor did not mean that we did not try to find additional investors, but on the other hand, it's let's say a very comfortable situation because you have this big brother with very good connection to the display market. In the case of Merck, they are a material company, very advanced, that actually dominated the liquid crystal molecule market for all the LCD manufacturers. So that was a very nice introduction to this marketplace of displays, and that's why they were interested in new materials for displays, such as our nanocrystals. And so at the end, it was a combination of Israel Innovation Authority with Merck funding as an investor to actually come through with funding for my case. But we did have quite a journey to try to find additional investors. But it was it's a complicated situation when you have a strategic investor as well.
Thank you, Uri. And I'll be happy to open it up to the audience. So if anybody has one, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can write in the chat. This is the time.
But I want actually, Anton, to refer to this question too, to see maybe to have this example from the German side as well.
Yeah, sure. So German science funding is very conservative. So I think we failed 5 times to get money, even more. I gave up. Actually, I gave up writing proposals because at a certain level you get so bad reviews, you just give up and don't say, okay, I do something different. But then a committee went through all Helmholtz centers because they were really chasing ideas, applications. And then I was somehow like a rabbit was pulled out of the hat and said, oh, we have something. And this actually helped when an outsider said, this is actually a good idea. Why don't you fund it? And that was the external impetus to get a basic funding. But this helped. So it came from Helmholtz. It helped, and we could do a first clinical study, which was a great success because we could really show how sensitive the method is, that it's applicable, it's easy to do, etc. So that was helped. But then the funding was not enough. So we quickly went outside, and already still being in a funding situation, we already looked outside who could fund us later on. And we quickly found a professional lab, one of the biggest actually diagnostic labs here in our region, Schleswig-Holstein. And they started to support us. And that was the first start of an external funding. And we created we funded the company, and from that on it went well, because then we had a team. I would like to emphasize, I think Uri said it, to have a team who is delegating tasks. That's very important, that you have if you share the burden and the competence, that's very important, and that helped by looking for venture capital and to have people to invest in the ideas. And of course, what also helps is patenting. So we had the patents running, and we had something in hand, and it was a platform technology which is promising for other applications.
Thank you. Frank, I see you have a question.
Yeah, hi. This is a question to Anton. So if you were saying that 5 times you utterly failed, and basically if you now look back to that, was there something that you felt like, well, now with your experience you would have done that differently? Or is it something that's like, well, you were simply not that far developed with the product, so you needed this initial seed money from the Helmholtz to get basically the patent going, and basically to show the clinical trial that you are successful? So if you look back onto that, so what do you think?
So I think the problem I realize, I think from my knowledge today, I wouldn't start it again. I would do it completely different, because the big problem was it is a kind of transdisciplinary application. So we are physicists, geologists, ocean scientists developing a method for in medicine. So this is already somehow strange, and there's a lot of suspicion in the society to say, oh, what could that be? So you have to overcome that problem, and I would start this quite differently. I would, in the beginning, I would put more from the group our medical competence in the forefront, and have applied not, let's say, in common funds, rather in funds or foundations who are really prone to accept higher risks and exotic ideas, let's say that way. But that's not a German character, exotic ideas. That's not a German thing.
So thank you. Avidan, last question, because our time is running up.
Yeah, my question is more about the team. I mean, you really emphasize team is important, and my experience also with a few ideas that we tried to go into a startup, but actually didn't even get to the startup because the problem was to create a team. So how do you find a team? And especially, how do you find a business manager? Because as scientists, at least me, I'm not good in the business side.
Rafi, do you want to take that one?
Regarding the team, I told you that what I did is to try and find a programmer from the army, someone that has experience, and I knew that once I will get someone good, then I'll be able to use the net of all the programmers that know one each other, and this way I built my team. I don't know if you have any equivalent in other countries, but in my case, strategically, I decided that I'm going to find a programmer that has experience, and most of the time it comes from the army. And I knew that once I get the right programmer or the right person, then I'll get the ability to build a team that can work together. So this is the way that I did it.
Uri, what would you say on the CTO versus CEO dilemma?
So I think that from the viewpoint, you are right that it's, Avidan, you are quite right that from the viewpoint of the scientific personnel and the technical personnel, we are in a very good position. And for example, to have like a just graduated graduate student to take on a lot of the technical stuff directly in the company was a very good model for me for that side. With the business side, I would say that is more challenging. I have to go again to the networking that Rafi already mentioned that we have in Israel. So this networking, this is how you end up finding, in my case, someone to take over the business side. And that's in Israel, we have this kind of networking to look for that. The tech transfer company also can help to some extent, I would say, but they take care of so many, hundreds of researchers at the university, so it's difficult. But I think the networking is there is no, I don't have another recipe aside from that actually right now.
Well, maybe in this case, both Helmholtz and EIT can offer some support in this regard, being a strong innovation network in Germany and in entire of Europe to try to connect different innovators and help maybe match CTOs and CEOs. So we're going to wrap up. I wanted to thank our panel.
I'm actually going to add to that. I'd like to add a few words to that. The networking issue is really, really important because, as was said earlier, a team is the most important part at this point. And statistics are very clear. Founders who are single team members by themselves will take 3 times longer and will have 3 times less chance of success versus a 3-member team. So that's really important. Now, the networking issue, of course, you start with the network of the people around you. But there are also a lot of options happening around the world, including, by the way, in Berlin, Munich, etc., that you can really utilize. And there would be meetups that you can go to of startup founders, of people who have already done that, and they're usually very, very open and helpful to each other. And they even sometimes do events to find partners. So, you get up and say, this is my background, this is what I do, I'm looking for a business partner, I'm looking for a marketing partner, et cetera, et cetera. And then you start meeting these people. And it's almost like looking for, your partner in life, because you're going to spend more time with them over the next 10 years of your life than with your husband or wife. So it's a really important person that you need to find.
Thank you. So, wrapping up, if it's okay, thank you so much, panelists, for coming and taking your time to share your wisdom and your knowledge. If it's okay, that I'm gonna share your information with the group, if that's okay. And if anyone in the group has any follow-ups or questions, hopefully they'll be able to contact. We're wrapping up the session. I think I'll let Amnon and Keshet kind of finish and describe what's the expected homework and assignments until we meet again on Thursday.
Cool.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
So we've put together a slide that will be hopefully clearer as far as what our expectations are for the homework. So some of you have asked, well, what is a relevant problem? And the answer to that is that it should be relevant, first of all, to your team. So it shouldn't be something you actually have no idea about. 2, it also should be pragmatic, meaning it shouldn't be too large. Solving global warming seems to be a little bit wide at this point, and not too narrow. And actually I had a hard time finding an example of a too narrow. I decided on creating an algorithm that does 1% better compression is not a very big interest, and it's very specific. You want something that it lives in this kind of best point between these 2 things. And examples, for example, security on millions of webcams is problematic. Can you solve this post-sales, not in the factory, etc.? Another example, COVID-19 diagnosis is too slow, 15 minutes to 24 hours. As it gets shorter, it gets less exact, and there are more either false positives or false negatives. Can you create a solution that can help companies go back to work? So in that sense, it means I need an answer in a few seconds. Is this person COVID negative? Can I trust that so that they can enter the building or they can enter the campus? And there are companies working on this. We know that, but those are interesting problems and can create interesting opportunities. So I hope that kind of gives you a better understanding of what we're asking you to do. Remember, we've asked you to find 5 problems and how that might fit your team, and then map those problems on the graph between potential and that fit. So if there are any questions of that, this is a good time to ask.
Amnon, if you can move to the next slide if there are no questions. So right now, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So right now you have two main things that you need to do by the next session. The first thing is to complete the assignment at the beginning of the next session, which is on this Thursday. We will be speaking to some of the teams and we'll be asking you guys to present some of your ideas. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to begin scheduling with your mentor meetings. You can use the mentor meetings, as Yoni said before, for a variety of different reasons. The first thing could be your team is looking for help on the assignment and is looking for some feedback. So you could schedule as a group, which in the file shows that option. Or the second thing is, you have your own idea or you have your own thing that you're working on and you would like feedback. So those are the two different ways that you can use the mentor meetings. I sent the link to the Discord. So we're still missing about 10 of you in the Discord or maybe a little bit less. So if you're here and you haven't joined the Discord yet, please do. It's in the email. And then within the Discord under tasks, there's the link to sign up for your mentor meetings.
By the way, the Discord app is kind of highly appreciated by the tech community. None of this data is going to go to Facebook, so don't worry about that.
Okay, so I think we're good. We're gonna always have an extra hour after the sessions open with your in groups that'll help you. We do recommend you utilize this time. It's just easier to schedule, but if not, feel free to find the best time that suits you. I want to say a big thank you for Andrea from Helmholtz for a kickoff and for the Huge Innovation team, and for all of you for joining us and learning and kind of trying to get your ideas out of the market. You seem like a great group. Thanks for being engaged, and we really look forward to doing this together. So we're going to stay here in the room. Feel free to go into your breakout rooms and work in your teams and let us know. We'll be here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Yoni, and thank you, Amnon, for your amazing presentation and your great work. I'm deeply impressed. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Yoni, also.
Yoni?
Yes?
I have a question. So we have our meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 10. Can we use still the Zoom or?
So actually, Keshet already answered me that the Zoom is not going to be available. So I'm going to send my own Zoom.
So then we have to use your Zoom probably.
Yeah, but can you go into our group? We can, because I have a question for you.
Go now. Okay, ciao.
Thank you and good luck. Enjoy
ciao.
your meeting.
During this